Father, y'all, we just thank you right now for this day. Father, y'all, we just thank you right now for just waking us up this morning, starting us on our way. Father, y'all, we thank you right now if we come before your throne of grace boldly, Father, y'all. Father, y'all, we just thank you, we repent for all sins, Father, y'all, everything that we know of and we know not of, Father, y'all. Father, y'all, we come against all forms of hindrances, Father, y'all, we come against all forms of rocks, Father, y'all, that causes sickness, that causes disease. Father, y'all, we thank right now we come against all forms of schizophrenia, Father, y'all, we come against all forms of suicidal demons, Father, y'all. Father, y'all, we come against all forms of demons of depression, Father, y'all, of oppression, Father, y'all. Father, y'all, we come against all forms of stress, all forms of anxiety, Father, y'all. Father, y'all, we just thank right now we prosper and be in good health, even as our soul prospers, Father, y'all. Father, y'all, we magnify your name on this day, Father, y'all, just letting you know that you're worthy, Father, y'all. Father, y'all, I'd like to let you know that you're awesome, Father, y'all, and you're marvelous, Father, y'all. Father, y'all, we thank right now for increasing with knowledge, wisdom, and understanding of your word, Father, y'all. Father, y'all, we thank that we walk in the Ruach HaKodesh, that way we will not fulfill the lust of the flesh, Father, y'all. Father, y'all, we counsel all assignments of the enemy on this day, Father, y'all, concerning our lives, concerning our mind, Father, y'all. Father, y'all, we thank right now we let the mind be in us, which is also in Yahushua Mashiach, Father, y'all. Father, y'all, we just magnify your name. In the name of your son, Yahushua Mashiach, we pray. So be it. We're going to be talking about briefly about the renewed covenant. We'll probably go back over this another time, but now we're going to do like the abbreviated version of it. A lot of times people don't realize that the Most High cut another covenant with us. He told us back during the days of Jeremiah that he would cut another covenant, not like the covenant that he cut with our forefathers, but a covenant that he would cut with us. And so a lot of times we get so caught up till we forget about the new covenant. We forget about the order of Yah. Let us forget about the fact that we are after the order of the Mashiach, which is after the order of Melchizedek, which is a priesthood that spoke nothing concerning Moshe. And it doesn't mean that we don't keep the commandments, but it means that we're under a new covenant based upon the actual word. You know, he cut a new covenant with us. And so basically, we have to look at the schoolmaster and understand that we are still under the 10 commandments and everything. I'm not saying that, but what I am saying, we can't ignore the fact that we have the minister of reconciliation is to reconcile people back to Yah through the Mashiach. Other than that, we may as well void out the fact that he came, died, and rose again. So this we have to look at. We're going to go to Joel chapter 2, starting at the 28th verse. It's going to get into what I try to look at, the fact that Mashiach, you know, he moves through the Ruach. Doesn't mean that the letter didn't have any power, but it means that in this day and time, a lot of people get into the fact that things been tampered with, things been changed. We have the basic word for the most part, but one thing you can't tamper with is the Ruach. You can't tamper with the Ruach HaKodesh. So if the Ruach is leading you something, he's not going to tell you something against the word, you know, if that word be true. So we'll go to Joel chapter 2, starting at the 28th verse.
Joel chapter 2, verse 28. And it came to pass afterward that I will pour out my Ruach upon all flesh, and your sons and your daughters.
You'll say, shall come to pass, it came to pass that.
Shall come to pass.
Oh, yeah, because see, this hadn't happened yet at this point in time. Good.
And it shall come to pass afterward that I will pour out my Ruach upon all flesh, and your sons and daughters shall prophesy. Your old men shall dream dreams, your young men shall see visions. And also upon the servants and upon the handmaids, in those days will I pour out my Ruach. Okay, saying those days will I pour out my Ruach. Now, this is years prior to this happening. We know that this will happen in the book of Acts, but not only in the book of Acts, but in our day and time, this is what the Most High is doing. This is like not the actual covenant, but this is like a promise. This is what the prophet is saying. You know, I think Joel would be a minor prophet. He's actually let you know that what's going to happen is not going to be what happened in the former days. It's going to be to a point where the Most High is going to actually have to pour out his Ruach. Now, this is the pouring out of the Ruach upon the flesh. This isn't the indwelling of the Ruach HaKodesh. This is just saying that everything will know. You like to say, it won't be any excuse. That's why the word begins to say, let everything that has breath praise Yah. And, you know, if you can read between the lines, you'll kind of be able to tie this into what's going on now versus what was happening at that time. Back then, they only had the letter and they only had the word that came from the prophet. They didn't have no other source. They didn't have no way of knowing the Most High outside of someone telling them. 30. And I will show wonders in the heavens and in the earth, blood and fire and pillars of smoke. The sun shall be turned into darkness and the moon into blood before the great and terrible day of Yahuwah come.
Okay. So basically, this is just actually introducing what's going to happen in the book of Acts. We know in the book of Acts that we're in the upper room. Everyone was waiting, till the day of Pentecost fully came. So when the day of Pentecost had fully come in the book of Acts 2, it said at that point, it happened. That what he was speaking of happened. Well, when he poured it out, at that point in time, everyone began to speak in new tongues. Everyone began to realize that everyone was talking and they didn't have the same language. They didn't come from the same ethnic background. But the rest of this hadn't happened yet. We still have more that has to happen. Like we're talking all the way until the end. We're talking about when it gets to a point where everything is over concerning the earth, when the sun be turned to darkness. And so we're going to go to Acts chapter 2, verse 15 to back up what Yoel said. And we're looking at this stuff to show about the renewed covenant. You can't have a renewed covenant without something changing. Like everything can't stay the same, and you can't operate solely upon what was going on with the letter and the way that Moshe was moving. You have to tweak something, and the Most High didn't actually do away with anything, but what he did was he cut another covenant. He cut a better covenant with you. He made it where you can do things in a better way, because if you have the Ruach HaKodesh, you're not going to go against, the commandments. You're not going to lie and all this stuff. So this doesn't do away with the 10 commandments, but what happens is it actually puts you in position where now you can be led. Like you don't have to actually have some man tell you what to do and what not to do. You know right from wrong, even though people that, may say they don't know the Most High, they have like something tell them, don't do this or don't do that. It's something that everybody have. They just don't acknowledge the Mashiach. They don't acknowledge Yahuwah, but they acknowledging somehow power, not knowing that in the last days, you say, I pour out my Ruach upon all flesh. And it's not, this is the word. And a lot of people are confused. They don't know how to line it up and figure out what they're looking for. And so they actually just calling on Allah, they calling on the universe and all this kind of stuff. But if they begin to line up and people begin to, I would say, plant water and begin to sow seeds, eventually some of these individuals will get online or get on track and say, okay, look, this is the Most High that's called me, begin to pull me in and trying to let me know that I'm doing wrong, that I need to line up and do the right thing. Because everybody has some type of fear in them of the Most High at this point in time. It's like they don't have the fear to do right, but everyone is thinking that there's some higher power, and they're getting it mixed up with Confucius and all kind of stuff. You know what I'm saying? They have some reverence towards something, but they're not knowing that it's the Most High that poured out this spirit upon them. And it's not saying that they've been saved or anything, but I'm just saying this is just the way he's operating. Like I said, in the last day, like he don't have to operate upon rules and regulations like we do, in a sense of like we have to lock everything down and know everything. He knows everything. So when he says he's going to pour it out, he means he's going to pour it out. And the word said upon all flesh. And that doesn't mean that, just flesh. He said anything that has flesh, he's pouring it out. And so this is what he's doing. You go ahead.
Acts chapter 2, starting at verse 15.
Yeah.
For these are not drunken, as ye suppose, seeing it is but the third hour of the day. But this is which was spoken by the prophet Yoel. And it shall come to pass in the last days, says Yahuwah, I will pour out my Ruach upon all flesh, and your sons and your daughters shall prophesy. Your young men shall see visions, and your old men shall dream dreams. And on my servants and on my handmaids I will pour out in those days of my Ruach, and they shall prophesy. And I will show wonders in heaven above and signs in the earth beneath, blood and fire and vapor of smoke. The sun shall be turned into darkness and the moon into blood before the great and terrible day of Yahuwah come. And it shall come to pass that whosoever shall call on the name of Yahuwah shall be saved.
Okay, now it say whosoever. So this is showing that with the new covenant that he cut, it's just it opens up the door for the rest of the individuals. Like we can't shut the door. That's why all of us must come in. Like we're blind now. And when the Gentiles begin to come in, our eyes will be open. Let's open our eyes so we can actually reach out. And this is why he told the disciples, go out to the four corners of the earth, to the othermost parts of the earth, and preach the gospel, the sword, whatever way you want to word it. And therefore, when you do that if men don't receive you, it say kick the dust off your feet. But when he gave them the word, and he commissioned them to go out. He didn't commission them to just come to us. He commissioned them to go out everywhere, because everybody must hear in order for us to actually open our eyes so that everything can, begin to take place that needs to take place. So if you look at everything like it is, Peter's letting them know, I'm echoing what the prophet said. This is nothing that Peter made up. Like when we read these scriptures, this is just them telling you what happened. They're not actually making up nothing as they go along. They're letting you know their thoughts of what happened in the day and time they're in. But he's letting you know that these men are not drunk. You know what I'm saying? Like they're just actually performing what the Most High said they would perform. And this is part of the covenant. Like he hadn't actually cut the covenant yet, but this is part of the promise that leads into the new covenant, because the new covenant opens up a door in the Ruach. That's why the Mashiach said, unless I go, I can't send you a comforter. He said, I can't send you a comforter unless I leave. So when I leave, I'll begin to send you the comforter, which is he, the Ruach of truth, which will teach you all things. So it don't mean that you don't have the word, but what it means that it works together in harmony with the word. So without the Ruach HaKodesh and you just looking at the word, you're going to bind yourself to things that the Ruach don't want you to bind to that may be legal. That it says you can do, but say all things are lawful but not expedient. How you know it's not expedient? Well, you got to have the Ruach to tell you it's not expedient for you personally. That's why it's a law unto you and there's a law unto others. So that there's just actual law that's written that's unto everybody. But then you have to be set apart. You know, that's why I keep going back to this message I heard from this out that said you set apart from the set apart. And if you're set apart from the set apart, then everybody that has this one law that the Most High gave them, it's not saying that you're not going to keep the law, but what it's saying is it may be something that the law said that you have the liberty to do, right, but you're not going to be in sin if you don't do it. Like it may say, like, you can eat this type of fish, but you know, the Ruach may tell you, okay, look, for whatever reason, I need you to lay off the fish for right now. This is where the argument comes in, that when ones try to put you in a box, long as I don't go against the law and say you can't, you know, that I'm telling you not to eat fish, you can't condemn me because I'm telling you the Ruach told me not to eat fish. That doesn't mean I'm making that a law unto you. That's a personal law unto me. That's the thing, and you can't let people take away your personal, you know, things and your personal experience that the Ruach gives you. If he tells you, hey, look, I don't want you eating whatever it is, like as long as you follow the dietary law, you're fine. But if he had me on a plant-based diet, you can't shun me and go telling me or try to force feed me the meat that you got, that you have probably done hardly no research behind. Half of this stuff, you just let the truth be told, probably been killed in a manner he said it shouldn't be killed. You shouldn't eat anything that died of itself, you know, died violently, anything like that. But we don't think about that stuff. We just want to say that the word said we can eat this, and we go showing you in the dietary law where it's part of the thing. But yeah, it's part of that. But what did it say shouldn't be done to it in the process? So we don't need to really get into a lot of wordplay with a lot of that stuff. I'm saying a lot of this stuff because I know how deep a lot of ones try to get when it comes to, you know, the law and all this stuff and trying to say what you can and can't do. Yeah, as long as you follow the commandments and everything, as long as you actually keep the dietary law, it don't mean the Most High force you to eat everything that was on the list. That's the thing. That's why we had to come out of our own ignorance and just begin to know that, you know, you can't move in the Ruach and try to be bound at the same time. That's the reason why the Ruach came, to get you out of bondage. So therefore, you have to be able to be led and be able to maneuver. I mean, you can't just look at everything that is saying you can do and then you want to just do all of it just because of the fact that it said you can do it. You need to find out where do you fit in at. Like, we're no longer in a box. Like, we're not one nation like everybody's trying to claim. Like, we're in a messed up situation. We're really in Babylon. It's like a lot of us in Babylon mentally like that. And we have to look at the fact that since that's going on and we've been here, a lot of things have changed. Our whole diet has changed. Like, this American diet we're eating is not the diet we had back then. And so we have to look at that. If you do a deeper research, most of this stuff has switched up anyway. It's not the same as it was back when we were in our own land. But out of our own ignorance, we just let them force feed us everything. If you look at some of the ingredients and some of the stuff that they're putting in this stuff, some of this stuff, you know, is not even good for you as a whole. But since it's not on the actual X off list, the opposite of the dietary law, when he said don't eat, we eat it anyway. Like, you know, it's like, you know, you're going to go eat dirt. I mean, dirt isn't saying, he ain't say don't eat dirt. Like, he don't have to tell you not to do everything. Some stuff you should be able to know, you know, what to do and what not to do. It's the reason why he told them that, you know, don't sleep with beasts, don't do this, don't do. He had to let them know down the line, talking to them as children of Yasharal as they were at that time, because there was no Ruach. But it gets to a point where the Most High after you got the letter, you got the law, you should know that there's a way you can maneuver without disobeying the law. There's a liberty that you have where some stuff that he said you can do may not be for you. But it don't mean that's the same for everybody. But at the same time, we have to make sure that we're not judging an individual because they're not doing exactly what we're doing. Like they're not just being, just what we call gluttonous or whatever you want to call it upon some of the stuff that is even hybrid. Most of the stuff we do our research, but I can't condemn somebody for it because once it's not on the list where you say don't eat it. So they go for it. But I know when the ruach kicks in, he begin to open up your eyes and show you certain things that you can and you can't do. This is getting into the renewed covenant. We're going to go to Jeremiah chapter 31, starting at the 31st verse.
Jeremiah 31, 31st verse reads, Behold, the days come, says Yahuwah, that I will cut a renewed covenant with the house of Yashraal and with the house of Yehus. Not according to the covenant that I cut with their fathers in the day that I took them by the hand to bring them out of the land of Mizraim, which my covenant they broke, although I was a husband unto them, says Yahuwah.
Okay, we're going to pause. They say, which my covenant they broke. This is the problem I have. Like a lot of us, we try to hold up to certain things. We try to say, oh, no, it's just you're under the law of Moses. Well, we under the law of anything. We're supposed to keep the commandments. But just to speak the truth, we have the ministry of reconciliation. We're not supposed to ignore the 10 commandments, but we're under the new and renewed covenant of the Mashiach. That's the covenant that we're under. We're after the order of Melchizedek, which is the order that the Mashiach came under. He's not after the order of Moshe. That's the thing. That's why a lot of people get mixed up, because it doesn't mean we do away with the old. It means that that's all we had. That is us, but us as a whole, as the Israelites, we're actually under the order of Melchizedek. We're actually not after the order of the priesthood of Aaron anymore. And that's what people don't understand. It doesn't change anything from that. We're still the same people. But for the priesthood being changed, the scripture said that the law had to be changed also. And so, they'll say regiment or whatever you have in some scripture or whatever orders that you have, there's certain things you don't have to do no more. I'm not saying that you don't keep the commandments, but what I am saying, the offering that you made for sins, you no longer have to offer those offerings anymore. It's certain things been changed. Other than that, then what are we doing? Like we might this is why some people cut it off after they get to either Malachi or whatever, after the first 5 books. They have to cut it off because you keep reading. If you even read Jeremiah, it's talking about a new and renewed covenant. Do we ignore this? Do we ignore this, or do we realize that the Most High began to operate outside of what we call just Yashraal as a whole, and he began to use us as representatives at the same time? When the Ruach begins to go out, he goes out, and we're supposed to be echoing what's supposed to be going on. We're not supposed to be trying to go backwards. We're supposed to be moving forward, and to move forward, you have to let the Ruach HaKodesh begin to lead. And this is where the softness versus the hardness come in at. Ones want to be hardcore and saying, hey, look, read the letter, read this, and you got to do everything it's saying, do it, you're going to hell. Versus when you look at the Ruach HaKodesh ushering in, when you letting the Ruach HaKodesh come into your heart and speak to you, and you saying, okay, look, I'm not ignoring the letter or anything, but this is what he's saying, do. Like, how do you be led by the letter? This is what I'm trying to get at. Like, right. You don't be led by the letter. You be led by the Ruach. And if you're not led by the Ruach, what are you led by? Like, what is this new and renewed covenant? Like, and I'm just going to give you a few examples of how the Most High move. You can't put him in a box. Like, if you do the research and you get real deep into the word to let the truth be told, the Most High never came against his people, but he didn't just let his people do what they wanted to do. It was always times where one that was not of the covenant, of the old covenant, or of the actual bloodline came in and did certain things. When you take Joshua and Caleb, after everybody else was disobedient, think Joshua and Caleb, I think it was like 21 and under, were the ones that came into the new land. Everybody else died out, something of that nature. It may have been 20, just to be corrected. But I will say that Caleb was not of the bloodline, but Joshua was, and he was actually chosen to come in. So when you look at this, I'm just giving you a few inklings of how the Most High operate. Like, he look at the heart of man if they obey the commandment. That's why I said one law for all. One law for the slave and that you had back then, it was one law for you as Joshua. Look at Uriah the Hittite. When David had him killed, he was a Hittite. It didn't say that he was of the household of Yasharal at that point in time. So when you look at everything that went on, this man here, the Most High still spoke up for him based upon what went on. You know what I'm saying? He didn't let, even though David put him on the front line and had him killed, it was the manner in which David did that. This was more about the sin of David than it was about what happened. Not that he didn't care about Uriah, but since David mixed up sin in the process and the manner in which he done it, the Nathan the prophet came and let him know, you're the man, you're the one that has innocent blood on your hand. And for this cause, you know, the sword gonna be in your house is gonna be blood. And that's why he couldn't even do it. You know, he had to get Solomon to build a house because David had blood on his hand. He had killed an innocent man. I'm just showing you how the Most High, if it wasn't an issue of things getting ready to go into the operation of the Ruach, of doing things in a righteous manner, if it was just about keep the law and Yashua as a whole, then there would have been nothing done about that. Because of course David kept the law. So, you know, but at the same time, the scripture said, thou should not kill. That's the thing, you know what I'm saying? So when you look at that, it's not saying don't protect yourself, but this was premeditated, you know, murder. So this wasn't something that he was doing to defend himself, because they were killing at that time. They were at war. So, you know, you look at it, you know, we have to just kind of rightly divide the word of truth. You can go ahead where we left off at.
33.
Yeah.
But this shall be the covenant that I will cut with the house of Yashraal. After those days, says Yahuwah, I will put my Torah in their inward parts and write it in their hearts. It will be their Elohim, and they shall be my people.
See that? He said, I'm going to put it in their inward part. He said, after those days, and write it in their heart. This is what they don't want to let come in. The law, just beating down, talking about what the words say, going back to something, talking about read this and read that. We can read it all night and day. It needs to be in your heart, in your inward part. If it's not in your inward parts, how do you uphold it? What are you saying? It's like we're spending so much time bickering and fighting one another about the scripture and about doctrine. Some of it you can prove, some of it you can't prove. And it's like we're fighting over what the Shabbat is. We're fighting over everything that needs to happen. Oh, he said you can eat this, then you ain't right. You ain't eating this. It's like it's just so much stuff going on to the point where if you don't watch it, you'll find yourself in bondage and not even knowing what's upon you. And so you can't be in bondage if you're going to allow the Ruach HaKodesh to move. It's not saying we do away with anything, but it's saying at the same time, you have to accept the fact that he's cutting a new covenant, or you have to take these scriptures out, one or the other. So we can't remove the scriptures, and that's what they do. They take it out and say, look, we're just going to look at the first 5 books. That's the only way you can get around this, is looking at the first 5 books. This is why they look at the first 5 books, so they could get away from being led by the Ruach, so they can say, look, it's locked down. This is what we're going to do. We don't want nothing different.
34. And they shall teach no more every man his neighbor and every man his brother, saying, know Yahuwah, but they shall all know me, from the least of them and to the greatest of them, says Yahuwah. For I will forgive their iniquity, and I will remember their sin no more.
Okay, and so he's saying all going to know him. So this is how the Ruach comes in. We're not going to hang up there. We're going to keep moving along, just showing that the new covenant must come in. Jeremiah is speaking about this. And so if you're going to believe what happened back then with Moshe, then why are you not going to believe what's happening with the Mashiach? Why are you not going to believe what's going on? Because this is how this is going to come in. This is how he begins to actually get this in. It's through the Mashiach. It's just not going to happen on its own. It's not just words. It's a renewed covenant. This covenant came through death. It's like without, without someone leaving here, then you can't usher anything else in. So it takes blood to cover the covenant. It takes blood to actually cover up, or to forgive any form of sin, a sacrifice, and the sacrifice was the Mashiach. Yeah, thank you. Okay. Yeah, Hebrews 8.
Right. So the Hebrews chapter 8, verse 1. Now the things which we have spoken, this is the sum. We have such a high priest who is set on the right hand of the throne of the majesty in the heaven, a minister of the sanctuary and of the true tabernacle, which Yahuwah pitched and not man. Okay, and the reason why I'm abbreviating this right here, because it's so much, this is going to probably be 2 or 3 series, but when you look at the renewed covenant, say of the true tabernacle, which Yahuwah preached and not man. Remember that last tabernacle was pitched by man. It was all set up by man. You know what I'm saying? You had the Holy of Holies and everything set up. You had the inner outer court, inside the gate, outside the camp. You had everything that was going on in that manner by man that was set up. But Yahushua Mashiach, the way he came, he didn't have to deal with any of that, because remember the way that was set up, it was set up for the high priest to go in,
and they were supposed to go in and to offer up sins for sins once a year. But the Mashiach was offered up once and for all. So when he was offered up, it was over. It said the veil was rent. Like say, so at that point, his flesh was ripped. When his flesh was ripped, it was over. And then when they began to, when the blood and the water began to pour out and get shot before he began to say, give up the ghost, that cut the covenant right then. This is just me explaining it by paraphrasing this. When that happened, when he said it is finished, that was it. It was done. Nothing had any victory over him anymore. The grave didn't have any victory over him, and it didn't have no victory over you. Death had no actual victory over him no more. It say he said he spoiled power and principalities. After doing away with the handwritten doctrinal ordinances that we talk about. That's up in Hebrews 6 when it talk about ordinances and all this stuff, a lot of stuff that went on, rituals and everything. Like we can't get caught up into all that. We have to realize that that stuff is not what's going to save you. You don't have to wash your hand up to your elbows and all this kind of stuff. Like you don't have to wash for everything you do, and these certain rituals are not even, it's not necessary anymore. So we're no longer held by the dogma and everything that was set up, all these different legal aspects of the law that they had to do back then that's not even written for a lot of you to even know, like certain offerings you had to bring in for certain sin. It was just a certain manner that you had to carry yourself, a certain way you had to carry yourself that concerned the priesthood back then. And that was concerning the priesthood of Aaron, which was Moses' priesthood, based on that right there. So the Levitical priesthood. And with that being changed, the Mashiach ushered in a way where now, look, let's forget about all that. It don't mean that you come to me and just like, it don't mean what you got taught in Christianity that long as you have, who they would say JC, that you're okay. It's not, now we're not talking about that, but what we are saying is that he is now the high priest. He's asking, offering forgiveness for sins that you're repenting of, that you're not going to go back and do again. Right. This is not saying that you use this grace that he gave you as some cloak to sin. Okay. This is just saying that since he came now you have an actual somebody that can actually go, a mediator on your behalf. You have a high priest. That's why they call him the high priest and the shepherd and bishop of your soul. And this is of your soul. Back then, this wasn't about a soul. They were just straight going offering up forgiveness of sin. They had nothing to do with your soul, those high priests. It didn't say anything about them being some type of shepherd and bishop of your soul. They were just able to go and offer the offering, and that was it, because half of those were getting killed when they go in, because they had sin on them, they would die. You know what I'm saying? So when you research, it talks about bells or something being on them or something where when you stop hearing them move, you have to pull them out by the rope, because only the high priest was supposed to go in the most holy of holies. If you weren't a high priest, you go in there and you're supposed to die too. It was just like Uzzah when he touched the ark, he was just trying to help. But it wasn't the order of the way things were supposed to happen concerning the priesthood, so he got killed by the Most High. For a lot of people that look at him as just, just fairy tale, Mr. Nice Guy, not knowing that the Most High, he punishes you for doing things out of order. It doesn't mean that you didn't have the right intention, but since you were out of order, you have to be punished. This is why it's important to know about the new and renewed covenant, that you don't get caught up and let somebody put you in bondage, having you thinking that you're supposed to be moving in the manner in which Moses and Aaron moved. This is the new covenant. You go to 8, chapter 6.
Okay. Going to verse 6.
Yeah, verse 6. Okay.
But now has he obtained a more excellent ministry.
Pause. Now he is the Mashiach. Go ahead.
By how much also he is the mediator of a better covenant, which was established upon better promises. For if that first covenant had been faultless, then should no place have been sought for the second.
Okay, now so the covenant that he cut during the time of Moshe and Aaron had been faultless, or that they went by up until the renewed covenant came, then why is he coming to do something different? What's the reason the Mashiach came? Like we have to look at this. If that was all good, then there was no need for him to even come on the scene. He had to come on the scene because the Most High had already showed signs of back and forth where man had begun to get to a point where he was not pleasing to the Most High. You know what I'm saying? When you look at around the time of Genesis chapter 6, to say when when the flood came and started talking about that, how he said that man was his heart was thinking to do evil continue. He was talking about that. So he said, I see man heart is set to do evil continue. This is just paraphrasing in Genesis 6. So when you talk about around the time of the sons and daughters, you know what I'm saying, when they talk about how the sons of Yah begin to see the daughters of Yah, and at that time, we know what happened with the Nephilim and everything of that nature. But the point I'm trying to get at is he washed them out with the flood, only saving 8 souls that was with Noah. It's like he repented that he made man at that point. So for him to cut that covenant and say, look, he won't do that again with water, but the next time it's going to be with fire, we have to look at what's going on here now. Okay, so he's not going to destroy them again. They say, look, man, it got worse then as it was, that, worse now than it was then. Because it said in the last day, it's going to be just like it was during the days of Noah. It's like we back to that again. We back to everything that's happening, evil imagination and everything. We look at technology and everything that's going on, and you compare it to what was happening then. We're on a higher level with this. You got a lot of stuff that, you got, demonic activity happening through the computer. Let's just be real. I mean, you got this stuff coming through TV. Everything is like, it's coming at you full force, and you're accepting it because you're not questioning. You're accepting everything that's being given to you by Babylon. It's like you're saying, okay, just because they put it there, you think that's good. This is everything. I'm not just talking about one thing. This is your food. This is information. You think just because they told you that, you deem it to be the right thing. They don't know what's best for you. They don't know what's best for you to eat. They don't know what's best for you to hear or to see. It's like you have to actually filter these things. You can't just say, okay, just like people say, look, not getting into any politics or American anything, but people say, okay, look, long as we're here, they figure the government, everything got you, what's best for you. They don't have what's best for you. They're doing what they need to do to control you. And the fact that you accept that shows that you pretty much just a pawn. You just pretty much just falling prey to whatever it is that they got going on. You're falling right into the trap. So you can't operate thinking that, everything is good based upon what's been presented to you. That's why we have to move and realize that the Mashiach, he has what's better for us, not what was going on with Aaron and Moses. That's why he came after the order of Melchizedek.
Okay.
Yeah.
But finding fault with them, he says, behold, the days come, says Yahuwah, when I will cut a renewed covenant with the house of Yashar'al and with the house of Yehuda, not according to the covenant that I cut with their fathers in the day when I took them by the hand to lead them out of the land of Mizraim, because they continue not in my covenant, and I regarded them not, says Yahuwah.
So he said, not according to that covenant. And this is where the question comes in at. So do we erase this or do we receive it? And if you're going to receive it, then you can't go, unless you're reading the first 5 books, you can't go locking everything in with just Moshe. Say not according to that covenant. When you cut a covenant with somebody, that's a covenant. That's saying, look, now this is what I have with you. This is the covenant I have. It don't mean that the covenant didn't exist that was there and that you don't acknowledge what was going on it to some degree. But when it gets to a point where it begins to crash or bump into what's happening with the Mashiach, then at that point, you have to choose the Mashiach. You have to choose the covenant that's going on. Then you can't allow both of them doesn't coexist. They don't exist together. Like we can't, let's be real. Like if you're saying it exists together, then that's pretty much like, saying that you're a double-minded man. And so we have to look at what covenant are you under? Well, it's telling you right here, it's going to cut another covenant. And so what is that covenant? Well, it's explaining even more. It said, not according to that covenant, but according to the covenant, I'm going to cut you. I mean, this covenant here is all through everything. He talked about it the whole while. He already, Isaiah talked about it. His name is going to be called Wonderful Counselor, Prince of Peace. This whole thing has been ushered in to us, but it's like we keep wanting to go backwards and we keep wanting to go in a position where we're locking our minds saying, look, this is all we need. Don't even turn the page. But when you turn the page, freedom comes. It don't mean it gives you freedom to sin. It gives you freedom to actually be led by the Ruach and not just by the letter.
10. But this is the covenant that I will cut with the house of Yashar'al after those days, says Yahuwah. I will put my Torah into their mind, and write it in their hearts, and I will be their Elohim, and they shall be to me a people. And they shall not teach every man his neighbor and every man his brother, saying, know Yahuwah, for all shall know me, from the least to the greatest. For I will be merciful to their unrighteousness in their sins, in their Torahless deeds will I remember no more. In that he says, a renewed covenant he has made the first old, now that which decays and waxes old is ready to vanish away.
So he said ready to vanish away. And so it's the thing now, what do we do with that? It's like we have to be real with that. If we be real with that, then we're no longer in bondage. Then we can maneuver in the Ruach HaKodesh to a point where we can say, okay, this isn't soft. Like anybody that wants to say this is soft is just wanting to operate in pride. Like if you want to keep this real, If you don't receive the renewed covenant, then you got to stop with whatever 5 books, whatever you want to stop with. You can't look into Jeremiah, you can't look into Isaiah, you can't look into Joel, you can't look at none of that. So if you're looking at everything that we have, I mean, we have 66 plus books. Even if you just look at just the 66, you have to acknowledge that something different is taking place. You have to acknowledge, even in Hebrews 5 and 10, it talks about how he came after the order of Melchizedek. This is all throughout the scriptures. Hebrews 7, it talks about, all throughout the line of how he came after the order of Melchizedek. And the reason he had to come after the order of Melchizedek, because Melchizedek was not after the order of Aaron. He had to show you something new. So we're going to 2 Corinthians chapter 3.
2 Corinthians 3:1. Do we begin again to commend ourselves, or need we, as some others, see from or commendation to you, or see from of commendation from you? Ye are our secret written in our hearts, known and read of all men.
And when they say secret, just talking about letters, written to you.
For as much as ye are manifestly declared to be the secret of Mashiach, ministered by us, written not with ink, but with the ruach of the living Yah, not on sapphire stones, but in fleshy tables of the heart.
Now, when you look at this right here, this is undoing what you saw during Moshe's time when he said he wrote the commandments on stone. And now he's saying it's going to be on fleshly tables of the heart. And so how could that happen? But the only way that's going to happen is that you have to accept what are you under right now? What covenant are you in right now? Are you after the Mashiach's order, which is after Melchizedek? Are you after the order of Aaron? How can you be after the order of Aaron? This is what I'm saying. Like, how are you after the order of Aaron when he's talking about in the whole book of Hebrews? This is why he had to write to the Hebrews like that. He had to write real deeply to the Hebrews. He had to let them know that, look, get away from all these ordinances. And I understand that, you're the Hebrew, but at the same time, we don't have to do a lot of this stuff you're trying to do now. The Mashiach has came in. That's why he had to break it down to them in Hebrews 7. All throughout the whole book of Hebrews, he had to let them know that the Mashiach came after the order of Melchizedek. And the reason why he had to come at the order of Melchizedek, because Melchizedek, when you explain, we're not going to go into detail about, but he talks about him not having father, not having mother, neither beginning of days nor end of life, like that, but remains a priest forever. And this is the thing, Psalm 110 talks about Melchizedek, other books talk about, but what I'm saying is he didn't come after the order of Aaron, which was during the time of Moshe, which was Aaron's brother, the Levite, the Levitical priesthood. Go ahead.
And such trust have we through Mashiach to Yahuwah. Not that we are sufficient of ourselves to think anything as of ourselves, but our sufficiency is of Yahuwah, who also has made us able ministers of the renewed covenant, not of the letter, but of the Ruach. For the letter kills, but the Ruach gives life.
So it say the letter kills, but the Ruach gives life. And when I want to say kills, I mean the letter actually did do that. Like under the law, you had to die. That's what people have to look at, like, and we'll flip it too. But under the law, you had to die. But even in this, people that's using the letter are verbally killing one another. It's like they're killing people's character, slaying people's character because they're not falling under the letter like they're saying. Like you got people, you can't read this, 2 Corinthians 3, and then go back and try to read what went on with Moshe. At some point, it's going to be a problem. It's going to be like trying to bring two magnets together. It's not going to work. And so when we look at this right here, we have to say, what is the renewed covenant? Why is he destroying what went on? It's not saying that it didn't have no power, but what it is saying that when you bring a priest in and you say, look, this is the high priest, how could there be two high priests? Either you're going to have the high priest, which is the Mashiach, or you're going to have some high priest of the order of Aaron. Even during the time when you start reading the scripture, as you get farther down and see some of these priests adopt, and some of these priests, there was another Joshua that came. They weren't after no order of Aaron. That wasn't the order, that wasn't the Aaron bloodline. When you research that and go deeper into that, that's not the Levitical priesthood. So let's stop it. Like, I mean, this is for me saying anybody that's out there on the street corner hollering or trying to force something down somebody's throat, and you just saying, read, going back to the old covenant, and you showing them this stuff, you're not showing them what's happening in the renewed covenant. It didn't tell us not to do certain things that it told us to do back then, but what it is saying that without the Ruach, the letter is not going to have any power. That's what it's saying. Like, you're just looking at the letter. You have so many people that look at the letter only, and you don't see the Ruach, there's a certain hardness to them. And that hardness is actually a abundance that they have because they're actually bound by the actual letter of the law. And they don't have any liberty, which is of the Ruach. They don't have any of it. Like you have to have a harmony. This is where a lot of people got caught up in because of the fact that they was feeling something. And they know they're feeling something that's outside of what they're reading. So when Christianity came along, it just brought them in. So they took Christianity, the fairy tales and everything, and they just ran with it. This is why when we came over here, our ancestors, when they came because they were disobedient. We had to look at it like how you get so gullible and fall prey to everything that's going on over here. We understand they beat them and all this stuff that went on, but the reason they came because of disobedience. And I'm saying that because when we were in Africa at that time, before we got sold out, they were mixing witchcraft and sorcery and everything up as a whole, worshiping some of everything. Everybody wasn't worshiping Yah when they came over here. Like a lot of the history try to show you, like, you can't say that as a whole. As a whole, they had everything mixed up because a lot of that stuff they learned when they came into the foreign land. We're not from Africa per se. We were just actually right there on the border, not far. So we fled there, running from the ruler Rome. And when we got there, we began to get caught up into everything they were doing. That's why the Most High kept saying, don't worship the Elohim that they're worshiping and everything. Don't do what they're saying do. This is the way I want you to carry yourself. But we got away from that. And so when we get over here and get introduced to Christianity and everything, and the slave master and all this stuff going on, beating everything into your head, telling you, look, I need you to obey, your master and all this stuff, and you have the one that's reading and they can't read. Well, they start taking that stuff and then they sprinkled in a lot of their stuff with it, and then they took the fairy tales and everything. So this forms Christianity. That's a whole nother religion. The problem is that it came from what we have. And since it came from what we have, all we got to do is go back to the scripture and get what we're supposed to have, leave the paganism alone, and begin to grab hold to what the Most High told us to grab hold to, and leave all the witchcraft and all that stuff up out of it. But when we came here through disobedience, and we came here doing some of everything. We had partial truth when we came, and we started taking on other false things along with it.
7. But if the ministration of death written and engraven in stones was glorious, so that the children of Yasharal could not steadfastly behold the face of Moshe for the glory of his countenance, which glory was to be done away. How shall not the administration of the Ruach be rather glorious?
So you're saying the face of Moses shining is more glorious than the Mashiach? This is the thing. This is what we're saying. Like, we're not at that day and time. We're still the bloodline, but we're not trying to cross the Red Sea. Like, we're not trying to, to come into a promised land like that right now, what they were trying to come in at that time. We're the people of Yah now. And what we have to realize is that without the Ruach HaKodesh in this day and time, we won't make it. We're not going to make it showing somebody something written in the Bible, just showing them that alone and not having no other way to be led by them to guide it. What's going to guide these words? What's going to bring these words alive? Because they have to come off the page. You can read it like everybody read the word. You got people in jail reading the Bible. So are they saved? Are they actually being led by the Ruach? So we have to look at it like, what makes you different from the average person that just sits down and read the word? Nothing. Only thing that's going to make you different is the Ruach HaKodesh. And if the Ruach HaKodesh, and that's just like the anointing. If the anointing of the Most High is not upon you, then it's going to be a problem. That's why when you have the glory of Yah, when the glory of Yah comes in, the glory begins to have, and I use this word glory loosely, but when it begins to come in, what happens is when the esteem of the Most High begins to come in, it begins to have a weight to it. It actually has something to it. It's not just, what we call smoke. It's actually there's the essence of Yah. It comes in and it brings something with it. It brings everything that Yah has to offer is with it. All the joy, all the peace, no stresses, like just like you being in a zone for a minute to the point where it's just something you feel like this you feel a lightness upon you that shows you that you're released from all forms of harm, all forms of danger. There's just something different about it when it comes in. So what makes you different from somebody just reading the scripture that's saying that all they do is just read books in general, because that's what Bible means, book, from somebody that's taking that scripture and applying it to their life, and then the Ruach HaKodesh upon them. A whole lot there. It's the very essence of Yah. It's the actual Ruach of Yah that comes upon you that brings it alive. without it coming alive, then what is it? I mean, it's just you reading. Like, I mean, you have to look at something separates, the reader from just looking at words that's being plain. And, and that's what we have to look at. We can't be bound to the point where we're looking at the letter only.
For the administration of condemnation be glory, much more does the administration of righteousness exceed in glory. For even that which was made glorious had no glory in this respect by reason of the glory that excels. For if that which is done away was glorious, much more that which remains is glorious.
Okay, so basically, see, if that which is done away is glorious, much more that which remains is glorious. So we don't have to read it all. I just want to just touch on the fact that we're under a renewed covenant. This is just part of it. This is just showing, when you look at that, you have to take that out of there if you're going to say we're after the order of Aaron. I can take you through the whole book of Hebrews. This is the scriptures I was using back in the days when I was refuting tithe, when I was coming against tithe, when I was showing you, even in Hebrews, when it talk about, I think somewhere in Hebrews 7, where it say, here men that die receive tithe. It say their men received them, in a whole different situation under the order of Aaron. So when you look at this right here, when you say here, and when you look at what's going on, he's talking to the Hebrews at that day and time. He's talking to them about what they're doing at that time. He's showing them that, look, no matter what you do, at the end of the day, if you're not following up the order of the Mashiach and you come after the order of Aaron, it's not going to work. It's going to be a problem at some point. And so we just wanted to go to renewed covenant. I'm in this in prayer. Just wanted to kind of just show y'all, we have to look at, the fact that the Mashiach came for a reason. When we just look at the law of Moses, we actually disrespect the Mashiach when we don't look at everything. We can't just lock ourselves down. And I say this boldly, you can't lock yourself down to the law of Aaron and the priesthood of Aaron. You can't do that. You have to look at the fact that we have the ministry of reconciliation. It's talking about the renewed covenant. We're after the order of Melchizedek, and that's the order that we're after. And anybody that's reading just the 66 books can't challenge that. I mean, you have to just read the first 5 books if you're going to challenge that, because it can't be challenged. Like it's gonna carry, and it does carry more weight than the order of Aaron. The order of Melchizedek carries most of the weight, and it's actually the order which we should be following. Father Yah, we come before you right now. Just thank you right now for the word that went forth. Father Yah, we thank that we acknowledge, Father Yah, your son. We thank you right now that we come in the name of the Mashiach, Father Yah. We thank you right now for just being with us throughout the rest of this day, Father Yah. Father Yah, we magnify your name because you're worthy right now, Father Yah. We just want to let you know that we appreciate you for everything you've done. In the name of Saint Yusham Shir, we pray. So be.